Shawn pulls Marie up and grabs her face while asking how she managed to break the 3 principles. Marie starts laughing. She asks if by 3 principles he meant the brainwashing nonsense those dim-witted good kids listen to. Her response confirms that there really was a way to break the principles. Marie laughs and asks if he knew the secrets of the 3 principles. Back when she was adopted, her parents were very impressed by her abilities. She tells her parents that the papers they had submitted had a small error in the theory verification section, which she had corrected. She goes on to explain all about the correction she made. Her mother pinches her cheek, calling her their lucky charm while thanking and praising her. After that, she continued to do her best. She had brought coffee to her mother, who was working, and noticed another error and immediately pointed it out to her mother. She even showed her mother how to fix it since she had been praised for doing so before. Her mother thanks her and says that she needs some rest. She tells her husband not to go into her room and to use another in case he wanted to sleep. Her husband tells Marie to leave her alone as she must have been really stressed. Her father then says that he will be leaving for some time. When her mother woke up again, Marie was still standing where they had left her. She had finished organizing all the data while her mother was sleeping. While going through the organized data, the woman asks where her husband had gone. Marie says that he had said nothing about his destination before leaving. Her mother tells her to remember and ask him next time. Marie says that she understands. The next day, she gives her mother a picture of her husband with another woman, along with the woman's name and age. Marie says that she had tracked them to a hotel on the outskirts, room number 307. Her mother slams the desk and tells her to stop. She says that she doesn't want to hear it. Marie was surprised since her mother was the one who had asked her husband's location. The woman grabs the coffee mug, and Marie tells her that it wasn't good for her in her current state of excessive stress. Marie says that considering the woman's lifestyle patterns, it seems like she was experiencing a persistent state of hormonal imbalance. Marie tells her to rest, but the woman slaps Marie. The woman asks if Marie thought that she was the best and the smartest. She asks if Marie thought of her as inferior. She tells Marie not to humor her, as no one could replace her. That was her last day with that family. The director asked her for a detailed report after she was returned. He thought that the situation was quite awkward. Marie apologizes for being returned. The director places a hand on her head and says that it wasn't her fault. He tells her that people tend to feel uncomfortable around those who are better than them. He tells her that it made sense she was the smartest of the good kids in the dead mansion. She asks if she was really smart, eyes teary. The director says that she was indeed. He tells her not to be disheartened, as it wasn't easy to let go of a talent like her. He says that now she can use her talents for the dead mansion. Marie feels relieved. But then Shawn appeared again. She says that the director shouldn't be distracted by someone like him. Shawn asks where the conversation was going. He tells her that he wasn't interested in her sob story and tells her to just tell him how she broke the 3 principles. Marie bites his hand. Shawn asks if she needed to be beat up more to answer. Marie stops his punch with her leg. Marie thanks Shawn for letting her catch her breath. She swings a dagger at him, and he quickly backs off. She removes her hairband and throws away her blazer, looking completely different. She says that it was time to get serious. She immediately appears in front of him swinging. She was very fast. Marie says that she was naturally fast. Shawn asks how she knew what he was thinking. Marie smirks, asking if he's surprised. She kicks him off balance, saying that it was too obvious what he was thinking. When she was about to punch him with the push dagger, he grabs another book and uses it as a shield before twisting around to pull away her dagger. She grabs the shelves and asks if Shawn doesn't think his speed and strength are different from before now. She asks if he had thought about it. How? Even though he was trained from a young age, it was possible for him to take on a fully grown adult and a professional at that. She asks if he hasn't felt as if something was wrong. Shawn asks what nonsense she was spouting. Marie asks if he doesn't understand even when she spells it out for him. Shawn gets distracted by a thought for a second. Marie jumps at the chance, asking if this was all the greatest legend was good for. Marie starts hitting him on his wound on his forearm with a book, then on the ribs that had cracked. Shawn, feeling desperate, looks around. She says that she is hitting him on his wounds deliberately and asks if he can't accept the fact that she was better. She smashes the book onto him while saying that she was the greatest in the dead mansion, not him. Shawn's wound starts bleeding again, and Shawn laughs at Marie for calling herself the greatest. He asks if this was all she could do. Grabbing the chair behind him, he smashes it at Marie. While smashing the glass panel, he remembers what he was taught as a kid. The martial arts taught under the assumption that both the user's hands were holding weapons, a dangerous and lethal art, a technique that ensures the opponent's demise. He partially wraps a page of a book around a glass shard to make a makeshift knife and uses the chair's leg as a baton. This was Alexander Kalyarny's, and only a select few, even among the best in the Dead Mansion, were ever put under Sophia Alexander's brutal training. Marie herself was never taught this technique, even though she was considered a masterpiece. Shawn whizzes past her, cutting her in seconds. She realizes why the director always pushed her to be the best, but never the greatest. She falls to the ground unconscious. Shawn stops his knife right before he kills her. He curses and says that he will let it slide this once before carrying her back to Rachel. Shawn says that all that talk about breaking the 3 principles she made were nothing but lies. Even when unconscious, she tears up while apologizing to the director. At the Dead Mansion, the lobby was filled with blood and dead guards. A man stands with a katana driven into the wooden floor next to the director's grills. The director is on his knees, back slashed and bleeding. Back at the school, the gangsters in the roof start getting impatient. One of them asks how long they're supposed to just wait. Another replies that they're supposed to wait for some kind of signal. He says they're ordered to throw Huang out of the window only when the signal comes. The others complain that it's too annoying to wait and ask if they can't just throw him out now. The first gangster insists they were told to throw him off in front of the yellow-haired kid. The gangster crouches in front of Huang, knowing he's awake and just pretending to be unconscious. He starts dragging Huang toward the edge of the building, saying it was Huang's fault they had to go through all this trouble. He sneers, asking if Huang didn't survive a fall from the 4th floor last time. He tells Huang not to be a nuisance this time around. Looking down, Huang's past trauma comes rushing back, and he suddenly starts puking. The gangster backs off in disgust, complaining that the rain was bad enough, but now Huang has made everything filthy. Just then, Eugene asks if his name was Huang, then dismisses the question, saying there's no way it could be anyone else. Ignoring the gangster's questions, Eugene remarks that just as he'd heard, Huang has a useless and pathetic face, calling him a weak loser. Huang asks who he is. Eugene pulls out a knife and says he's just a regular at Huang's mom's snack shop. One gangster pulls out his own knife, asking if Eugene is from the Dead Mansion or something. But before he can even finish speaking, Eugene is suddenly behind them, cutting their hands and legs. One of the gangsters stumbles back, asking how he was this fast. Eugene prepares to fight again, but the gangster scrambles to grab his gun and points it at Eugene. Huang thinks the kid is in danger and realizes he has to step up, but wonders what he can do against a gun. He remembers how Eugene said he had a pathetic face and thinks to himself that a kid is doing more than him. He calls himself pathetic. When the gangster is about to shoot, Eugene tries to dodge, but his wounded leg from Yuri makes him lose balance. He falls, leaving the gangster a free shot. Huang suddenly jumps in, tackling the gangster and biting his ear Mike Tyson style. He yells, asking if the gangster is crazy, pointing a gun at a kid. The gangster aims the gun at Huang, but Eugene kicks it out of his hand and says he takes back what he said earlier, that Huang is somewhat useful after all. Inside a van in the parking lot, Marie finally regains consciousness. Rachel is in front of her. Rachel says it's fortunate Marie woke up, since she'd be in trouble if Marie had died. Marie asks how she lost and where Shawn is. Rachel replies that he left, saying he forgot his clothes, but she knew it was just a lame excuse. He must be looking for the old woman and her son. Rachel cuts off the small talk and injects something into Marie's leg. She says it's time for questioning. Seeing Marie's worried expression, Rachel explains it's just a confession drug, nothing surprising. It'll keep her alive as long as the dose is moderate. Grabbing Marie's hair, Rachel tells her to be honest so she doesn't have to use more of the drug. She asks what Marie has been doing behind her back. Marie scoffs, saying she would have told the truth even without the drug. She says she was planning to partially demolish the current Dead Mansion, along with Null. Rachel freezes, asking if this is supposed to be a joke. She asks if Marie is saying Null is still alive. Marie smirks, saying Rachel seems pretty worried about him. She reveals Null told her he was the one who gave Rachel the scar on her forehead, not Shawn. She calls Null the true legend of the Dead Mansion, the one Rachel and the director have been hiding. Meanwhile, Shawn walks through the hallway, checking each classroom. He suddenly notices her in his classroom, Huang's mom. He asks if she's all right. She softly calls her son's name. Relieved, Shawn opens the door but suddenly stops. She had told him never to go near her. Even Rachel warned him not to. He freezes in place. Just then, Eugene shows up, saying Shawn doesn't look so good. Shawn asks if Eugene is hurt anywhere, then notices Huang behind him. Huang asks why Shawn is there. Eugene explains that Shawn is the guy he mentioned earlier. He says that even though Shawn looks like a monkey and acts foolish, he's the one who completely crushed the thugs targeting Huang and his mom. Huang isn't having it. He brushes past Eugene, saying all this about Russian mercenaries, the dead mansion, whatever. They have nothing to do with him. In the end, all this happened because they got tangled with a thug like Shawn. He demands that Shawn explain it himself. Eugene notices the old lady on the desk and quickly opens the door, asking if she's all right. Huang also runs to his mom. Shawn freezes again, this time because he senses something behind him. Huang tries to wake his mom, but fails. Shawn tells Eugene to take Huang and his mom to the parking lot, where Rachel is. Eugene notices Shawn's serious tone and asks if something is wrong. Shawn tells him not to worry, to call Huang, and to promise he'll explain everything later. He apologizes for not being able to protect anything. Huang and Eugene leave, but before going, Huang looks back and says, "It better be a proper explanation." After they're gone, Shawn turns around and says the man can stop hiding and come out. For a moment, silence. Then the sound of clapping. A man steps out, saying Shawn is pretty sharp. He notes that the blonde hair and blue eyes match his notes. He admits he was nervous after hearing so much about Shawn, but now that he sees him, Shawn seems different than expected. He thought Shawn would be more terrifying. Shawn asks who he is. The man replies, "My name is Jen Hian, the Beast." Meanwhile, at the snowy fields of Siberia, at the barefoot headquarters called the Bear Cave, a man drinks vodka from the bottle. His name is Beluga Kozlov, the barefoot strategic planning staff. He asks why he was intruded when he was having fun. He says that he knew his uninvited guests weren't there to worship peacefully. Vincent, the dead mansion writer, asks if it wasn't obvious by the look on his face that things were serious. Vincent says that the dead mansion director was furious with Barefoot. He says that Barefoot had no courtesy between their business partners. Vincent asks if Barefoot was testing their limits. A man reading a book behind Vincent says that the matter happened in Korea and hence can't be helped, as it was just a minor friction that occurred during the mission. Sasha Denisov, the tactical training instructor. He continues and says that Barefoot wanted to avoid any conflict with Dead Mansion as much as possible. Vincent calls bullshit and says that they sent Dmitri, who was the second in command, for the mission. Sasha tries to play it off as a coincidence. Vincent asks if Barefoot didn't also deploy their strongest, bare knuckles, Igor Medvedev, the leader of Barefoot, to the mission too. Sasha asks how Dead Mansion had that much information while walking forward. A Dead Mansion monk steps in between them and asks Sasha to shut up, saying that Sasha talked a lot for someone so small. Sasha takes his glasses off while asking who the monk was calling small, but he notices his cheek bleeding out of nowhere. Beluga notices the thin wires all around them and asks when the kids came inside their base. He asks if it wasn't cruel to bring kids to such a cold place. He pulls out his revolver and says that it seemed like they were going to settle things once and for all. Just then a kid lands on the back of the couch Beluga was sitting on. Beluga asks why the kid was trying to scare him, while the kid walked past him excusing himself. Vincent asks what happened as he didn't ask the kid to come down. The kid says that something was strange. He says that the director or anyone who remained in Dead Mansion were all unreachable at all. Just then a man bolts in through the door, looking for Beluga. Beluga tells him to stop shouting. The man runs up to Beluga and whispers in his ear. Beluga couldn't believe what he heard. Back in Korea, the sun was coming back up when Jang Hian walked up to Shawn. Shawn wonders why Jang Hyun's name sounded so familiar. Before he could think, Jang was right in front of him, his leg inches away from his head. Jang twists his leg around to hit the top of Shawn's head. Shawn blocks the hit, but it felt as if he was hit by a hammer. Jang says that he was impressed Shawn managed to block, as he was hoping to end Shawn off with a single blow. Shawn tries to punch back, but Jang easily twists Shawn off his feet, while saying that the more Shawn struggled the worse it was going to hurt, and that he was expecting more from the masterpiece of Dead Mansion. He says that Shawn wasn't even as good as Big Daddy. Shawn blocks the next kick, but another one follows immediately after. Shawn asks what he meant by Big Daddy. Shawn grabs Jang by the collar and asks what Jang was spouting after showing up out of the blue. Shawn says that he was better than whoever Jang was talking about, while throwing him out of the window. Jang asks if Shawn really just tried to throw him out of the window. He says that he was told Shawn was one of the good children, but this wasn't good at all. Shawn asks what he was talking about again, but Jang's hand is on Shawn's face before he knew it, and Shawn gets slammed back into the wall. Jang stops himself, saying that he was told to bring Shawn back alive by Null, and that he almost ended up killing Shawn. In the van, Marie tells Rachel to stop being so edgy and says that Rachel can join them as long as she cooperated. Rachel asks if Marie even knows her situation. Marie laughs and says that Rachel is the one who doesn't understand the situation. She says that the barefoot leader Bare Knuckles was about to be there any moment, and that even Rachel doesn't stand a chance against Igor, the strongest barefoot. She gets cut off by the director's direct line, and someone says that Igor won't be coming, and that the private jet Igor was on went boom midway. He says that Igor should be at the bottom of the sea by now. He apologizes to Marie for disappointing her and giving her high expectations. Rachel notices the voice. He says that it had been a while since he heard her voice. He says that he wanted to meet her personally, but that didn't happen since he had other things to handle. Rachel asks how Null was able to use the director's direct line. Null looks at the director and says that it was because he was with the director. He says that unfortunately the director was no longer in a state to talk. Marie asks what he means. She says that he promised to keep the director safe. Null says that he just lied, as his goal from the very beginning was the destruction of Dead Mansion. He asks if it wasn't natural for him to start with destroying the director. He says that it was all thanks to Marie he could make this possible. She even helped him divert attention by sparking conflict with Barefoot, an unimaginable strategy he could never come up with. He calls Marie a true masterpiece of cunning. He thanks her for making most of the monks and good children go to the Barefoot headquarters so he could easily destroy Dead Mansion. Plus, the leaders of both organizations are now gone, and by now they should start suspecting each other. Just as he said, Vincent and Beluga start blaming each other. Vincent asks if this was what Barefoot wanted all along. Beluga says that he won't stay quiet, but someone else walks up towards them. She tells them to stop. She asks if they have forgotten the directives of the House of Alexander. Beluga says that he didn't expect for her to step in personally. Alexander Sophia says that this would have been unacceptable if they did it knowingly, but since they didn't, she was willing to let it slide for once. She asks if they shouldn't lay down their weapons now that they were in front of a lady. Beluga says that Dead Mansion was quite shameless to bring in Alexander with them. Vincent says that he wishes that was the case. Sophia walks past them, acknowledging that she had helped Dead Mansion in the past, but the way Beluga phrased her involvement was quite unpleasant to her. Both of them feel the pressure and back off from each other. The Dead Mansion kid admires how strong Sophia was to make high-ranking officials like Vincent and Beluga stop fighting. Sophia says that she wasn't there to take anyone's side. She tells them that she was just trying to warn them about the seriousness of the current situation. Shasha asks what she was talking about. Sophia tells them that this situation isn't just a problem between Dead Mansion and Barefoot. She says that the discarded masterpiece Dead Mansion had concealed has returned. She tells them that Null has returned. Back in Korea, Shawn asks if Jang thought this was a game. He asks who Jang was to decide whether to take someone or not. Jang tells Shawn to check it for himself. While he was saying how he was going to bring Shawn back to Null, Shawn bites him, just like Marie had done to him. Jang pulls his hand back, calling Shawn disgusting. Shawn asks why the cloth on Jang's hand tasted so weird. He asks if it was a gross, shit-stained cloth, and why Jang would carry around something so dirty. Jang notices his missing cloth and rushes at Shawn, telling him to give it back. He starts cursing at Shawn to hand it over fast. Shawn throws it at Jang, saying he doesn't need it anyway. Just then, Jang gets a call. He answers it angrily, but it was Null. Null asks how Jang was doing and if he had already gotten worked up and started a fight, even though Null had told him not to. Null reminds Jang that he has to help him so Null can find the person Jang has been looking for. But if Jang, by chance, killed Shawn, Null says that Jang would be in big trouble. Jang apologizes and says that Shawn was completely different from what Null had said. Jang claims Shawn lacked skill and looked like a flashy punk with terrible fashion sense. Shawn asks why everyone was making fun of his appearance these days. Null then asks if Shawn was truly that Shawn. He sits on the stairs, saying it does sound strange and that it shouldn't be like this. With a serious face, Null asks if Jang wasn't just suddenly deciding something like a parent again. Jang sighs and says that people from Dead Mansion were too complicated. Null tells Jang that Shawn possibly has a parent somewhere nearby and orders Jang to kill that woman. But as soon as Shawn heard it, his fist was right next to Jang's face. Jang was taken by surprise, wondering what had happened since he didn't even notice Shawn moving. Shawn lifts his leg and slams it down, barely missing Jang's head. The impact cracks the floor tiles. Shawn snaps out of it and wonders what just happened to him. Jang asks if this was Shawn's true strength. He says Null might have been right. Jang starts caressing his cheek, saying Shawn might be somewhat useful. Null says that Shawn will definitely help their plans. Jang notes that the sun has already come up. Null tells him it's time to gradually make his way out. Jang asks if it's alright to leave with Shawn, but Null tells him that Shawn's hands are locked with his parent now, and it wouldn't be helpful to retrieve him in this state. Null says they should just watch a little longer, at least now that they know Shawn is the real deal. Eugene shows up looking for Shawn, saying there was a big problem. Eugene tries to tell him about Dead Mansion and the director, but Shawn turns back to where Jang was. Jang had vanished. Shawn asks where Jang went, but Eugene asks who he was talking about. Shawn says there was a guy he was just fighting. Eugene replies that he didn't see anyone. Suddenly, Shawn falls over. He says they have to find Jang, as he seems to know something. Shawn collapses unconscious right after saying that, and Eugene tells him to get a hold of himself. The season changes, and a month passes by. Biko Agency had cleaned up the aftermath, and the school was in temporary closure during that time. The students were told that this would be deducted from their vacations. The culprit of the whole incident was revealed to the general public as Joseph's father. After his son was accused of being the ringleader of bullying and school violence, Huang held a grudge against the school and those around it. Huang and his mom must have also been shocked, as they had closed their shop. Shawn opens the shutter to the snack shop. A man asks if he wasn't late for the meeting. It was Dimitri, with a cast around his neck. Shawn asks if it wasn't Dimitri who came early. Dimitri tells Shawn to come in quickly, as everyone else had already arrived. Even Yuri was alive. Shawn asks if they weren't getting along a little too well after itching to kill each other just a month ago. Marie was, of course, handcuffed. Dimitri says that business was business, and the people who were supposed to pay him had disappeared. Igor, the leader of Barefoot, was also taken down. Dimitri says he can't let that Null guy, who was behind all this, just walk away. He slams his knife into the desk next to Marie, demanding she spill anything and everything she knows about Null. Rachel says she was also in the same situation thanks to Marie. The director was kidnapped by Null, and if it wasn't for Barefoot's involvement, Dead Mansion wouldn't have lost. Yuri asks if Rachel was joking, saying it was Dead Mansion that threw the first punch. He says it was all because of Marie and tells them to take care of her first. Marie mocks them, calling them dumb bears who were so simple-minded. Yuri asks if Marie thought she wouldn't be beaten up if she kept running her mouth. Shawn just listens to them argue. Eugene stops them, saying all of them had been played by Null. He tells them to calm down and sort this out one step at a time. Dimitri says they should start by extracting information from Marie. Shawn finally speaks up. He says that the head of Dead Mansion has been kidnapped, and most of their forces have been wiped out. The leader of Barefoot has vanished, or could even be considered dead. He says that everyone in the room should already know they now have a real common enemy. Dimitri asks what Shawn was proposing. Shawn says they should form a temporary alliance. Rachel asks what he means, and he explains that it's something the Korean kids called a crew. Yuri asks why they should team up with those guys. Dimitri admits a crew sounds interesting and asks what they were going to be called. Shawn says he hadn't thought that far. Dimitri calls him an idiot, saying a good team name is necessary to bring people together. Shawn suggests that since it was Barefoot and Dead Mansion working together, they could take the first letters of each word to form bad. While opening the shutter again, he asks how Bad Child sounds for the crew name. He declares that their mission now was to crush Null. Dimitri says that he likes the name Bad since Barefoot is still in the first letter. Yuri asks if Dimitri was actually planning to join the crew or something. Dimitri settles down and says that he kinda liked the name, but the thing that fell off for him was that Shawn seems to have become a completely different person in just a month. Dimitri asks Rachel what happened to Shawn. Rachel looks at Shawn. A month ago, in a hospital, Vincent asks how Shawn was doing. Rachel says that he was recovering and that it definitely looks like he's overdone it. Vincent says it was a relief that they were able to retrieve Shawn without any issue. One of the kids asks where he should put the books, and Vincent tells the kid to give him the top book and stuff the rest in the bookshelf in the VIP room. Rachel asks what the situation in Dead Mansion was like. Vincent says that they returned right after hearing Sophia's warning, but the director had already disappeared into thin air. He also informs her that Null had taken the ledger of the good children with him. Rachel asks why he would need something like that. Vincent explains that this was what the director had always worried about, that Null intends to personally retrieve the good children that were sold. After killing her parent, Null tells her that he wasn't her enemy. He tells her that he came to save her and asks her to join them. Vincent says they were verifying the locations and personal information of the buyers recorded in the reserved ledger, but Dead Mansion had too few people to cover everything. He had to borrow Bear's hand, even though he wasn't keen on it. Rachel asks that even if the parents were killed, doesn't the control of the good children go back to Dead Mansion? Vincent says that's usually the case, but Mare had somehow gone against Dead Mansion without having a parent, and also said they had found a way to break the three principles. Maybe Null has really found a way to do it. Even the director was afraid of children who ignored the absolute principles. That was why he was verifying that Shawn was still following them. Vincent asks if Shawn has realized it yet. Rachel says that he hasn't. Vincent says that Null might try to contact Shawn first, and that they should get Shawn to Dead Mansion HQ and never let him meet Null. Shawn has a dream while unconscious. At Dead Mansion, a woman shouts at him to get out of the car. The director asks why the woman was there so late, and if they knew where she was. She grabs Shawn's hand and drags him forward while telling the director to take him off her hands. The director says Dead Mansion only takes in lost lambs and asks how they could take a kid whose mother is right next to him. She throws Shawn down into the mud and says that she's willing to pay as much money as they asked to take him away. She says that she doesn't want to raise a kid like him and tells Dead Mansion to raise or sell him as they pleased. He suddenly wakes up on the hospital bed, wondering why he was there. He slowly remembers what had happened and the phone call between Jang and Null, where Null asked Jang to kill Shawn's parent. He scrambles out of bed and into the streets, running toward Huang's house. When he reaches the apartment, he tries to use the elevator, but it doesn't work. He takes the stairs, begging for it to be a malfunction, but he's out of luck. The elevator was held open by a sword, a tactic used by good kids to exhaust enemies in multi-story buildings. Null is sitting behind him, saying that he was late, just like when he was on the position. Null says that he's missed Shawn, but Shawn doesn't even know who Null is. Null is surprised that Shawn doesn't remember him. Null grabs Shawn's hand and says it wasn't good to forget him like that, after he had gone through so much trouble to come see him. Shawn wonders how Null closed the distance between them so fast. Null asks again if Shawn really doesn't remember him. Null says, "Don't you remember me saying that I was going to kill this woman?" Shawn pulls back immediately, recognizing the voice from Jang's phone. Null blocks Shawn's kick and says it would be a big problem if Shawn kept attacking him while pretending to be a good child. Null asks why Shawn goes around picking strangers to act like his parents again. Shawn asks what he means. Null reaches for his sword, saying Shawn's memories must have been removed, the memories of the type of person he was. Shawn quickly steps back when he sees Null swing. Null says that Shawn was different from the good children from the very beginning. He asks if Shawn knows that he wasn't one of the good children to begin with. Shawn asks what that means. Then, the memory, his mother throwing him away to Dead Mansion. The director had tried to talk some sense into her, but Shawn cuts in and asks what he did wrong. He says his mother was the one who complained the neighboring lady was always loud and annoying, and he only made it so she wouldn't bother his mom anymore. He says he still feels bad for their dogs. He liked how the dogs wagged their tails when they saw him, but now they won't be able to bark anymore. He asks if he did well. Shawn gets back up from the ground, but his mother feels uncomfortable and tells him to stay away. The director places his hand on Shawn's shoulder and says that he understands now, that he will take care of Shawn. Shawn says it was strange since he had acted like a good child who listens to their mother. Null says that he found it intriguing. Shawn wasn't taught to obey like the rest of the children, yet he still pretends to be one. Shawn is shocked by all this. Null says that he will keep taking Shawn's parents away over and over until he finally gives up. Shawn remembers being thrown away, the fear in his mother's eyes when looking at him. He grabs Null's sword and shatters it with his elbow, using the broken piece as a knife to stab Null. Null pushes Shawn's hand away and says Shawn could never be a good child like the rest of them. He says Shawn was just a weapon. Back in the Dead Mansion cellar, Beluga finally finds something he had been looking for, the director's vintage wine collection. Vincent asks if stealing was part of the profession for Beluga. Vincent says this was the reason he didn't want Beluga inside his home. Beluga replies that since they let him in, they might as well give him a proper welcome. Vincent asks what the documents on the table were, and Beluga says they were security personnel placements for Dead Mansion clients. Vincent asks what it was for. Beluga explains that since Null was targeting the Dead Mansion clients, the kids weren't enough to stop him. So the barefoot mercenaries would escort the clients and let Null, or whoever, come try and kill them. He also says that he prioritized placing guards around the wealthiest VIPs first. After all, managing the VIPs was the core of the business. Vincent grows suspicious of Beluga, wondering how a moron like him became the strategic planner of Barefoot. Beluga starts opening a seal of vintage wine, saying this was his return for all the work he did. Vincent says each of those bottles costs a fortune and that if the director found out, Beluga cuts him off, saying that's precisely why he was drinking it. He adds they might never get a chance to drink something like this in their lives if not for now. He asks if he should pour a glass for Vincent as well. A few hours later, fully drunk, Beluga says the name Blood of the Gods suits the wine well for how good it tasted. He says he was curious about one more thing. He asks how Dead Mansion managed to brainwash those kids with the 3 principles. He admits he wanted to adopt one of them as his sibling after seeing how well they listened. Beluga asks if it was a trade secret, saying he was just a little curious about the methods. Vincent explains that most of the kids who come to Dead Mansion were abandoned by their families, those with a stronger sense of deficiency than others. That is what Dead Mansion uses. You have been abandoned because you are an imperfect being. You have to become the perfect good child. A good child must prove their worth. A good child must excel above everyone else. We can be a family if you become a good child. Otherwise, you will be abandoned again. Beluga asks if they could maintain control over the kids with just that. Vincent says it's the kids' deficiency that makes it such a strong binding power. Beluga calls them terrible and asks if this was something the director came up with himself. Vincent shakes his head and says this wasn't one of the director's ideas. Rather, he wasn't one of the good children either, but a child who wanted to be good. A child who would do anything just to get his parents' approval. The director just created the method based on that child, the law of 3 absolute rules. Meanwhile, Null tells Shawn he can never be a good child. Shawn kicks him back. Null notes that the kick hurt, thinking Shawn's strength was returning. Shawn wakes back up, asking if he really can't be a good child. He remembers when he was abandoned by his parents, and even Huang's mom told him never to call her mother again. Shawn admits Null might be right. He might not be a good child after all. Null feels relieved that Shawn finally understands. But Shawn says that if he could get rid of Null, who threatened to kill his mother, he would become a good child again. Null laughs, asking why Shawn wanted so badly to be a good child. He says this was Shawn's problem. Because of his actions, the Dead Mansion now has the 3 absolute rules. He says it was because of Shawn that the rest of them started to be controlled. Shawn deliberately squeezes his hand on the blade, spraying blood into Null's eye, and attacks from his blind side. Null calls it pathetic for Shawn to go this far. He disarms Shawn and swings low, but Shawn jumps over, grabbing the broken blade midair. He lands directly in front of Null, cutting only his collar. Shawn throws a plant pot at him, which Null destroys, but Shawn's blade pierces through the dust cloud. Null knocks it aside with his hand. Shawn grabs Null's sword arm and declares it's over, landing a clean punch to his face. Null drops his sword, but catches it with his other hand, forcing Shawn to back up. Shawn says the sword was quite annoying. Both get ready for the next exchange. Shawn clenches his fist so that the point of contact is as small as possible. When Null swings again, Shawn carefully watches the blade and punches its side, breaking it fully. Null admits he thought it was a fluke the first time. When Shawn is about to punch him again, Null mocks him, saying he wasn't as good as he thought he'd be. Shawn gets kicked in the face with an insanely fast strike. Shawn twists around to kick Null, but Null blocks while pulling out a knife. Back in the cellar, Beluga asks who Vincent was talking about. Vincent answers that he was talking about Shawn, the one Barefoot was trying to kill. Vincent asks if Shawn also got assigned some security personnel. Beluga says he didn't think it was necessary. Vincent tells him Shawn was the most important one to protect. Beluga insists there was no need. Meanwhile, during the fight, the elevator doors open. A voice tells them to be quiet, asking why they were making so much noise. Cold sweat drips down Null's cheek as Sophia walks toward them. She asks if Null hasn't been acting all cocky while causing trouble. Then she turns to Shawn, saying it's been a while since she last saw him. She comments on his look, reminding him that she made sure to lock the door back then. She places a hand on his head and says she'll finish the greeting later. Then she looks at Null, who immediately feels the pressure. Before he can react, Sophia appears right in front of him, her fists sinking into his stomach. She sends him flying so fast the glass windows shatter as he smashes through them and slams into a wall. Sophia wonders aloud if she went too hard on a kid, thinking he was far too light compared to what she was used to. But when she looks back, Null is gone. He had escaped through one of the windows. Sophia says they should stop there anyway, since it wasn't her job to catch Null. She turns around, saying she'd like to have a chat with her disciple first. Placing a hand on Shawn's shoulder, she says no matter how long he was away from home, it disappointed her to see him this week. She adds with a cold look that it seemed like some adjustments were needed. She then picks him up and puts him over her shoulder. Shawn tries to stop her, but she tells him that the old lady who lived in that house didn't live there anymore. She tells him that all members of Good Children were being targeted by Null, and that Shawn was no exception. She asks him to trust her when she says that she will protect Shawn's current parent in the name of Alexander, albeit she became his parent not by choice, but by Shawn's will. She then says that it was nothing he needed to worry about anymore and asks him to focus on his training. She asks if they should start the dead squad again, and Shawn's expression immediately tenses. Sophia turns around saying that he seems to remember that if he failed he would die. 1 month later, Dmitri laughs after hearing Shawn say that he was made to do squats with TNT tied to his lower body. Shawn asks if Dmitri even understands the situation. He says that he would explode the second he tried to relax even a bit. Dmitri says that he thought it was just a rumor, but to actually think she trained like that. He says that the Alexander family was built different. Shawn screams and tells Dmitri not to say that family name out loud again. Dmitri then asks how much better Shawn had gotten, and Shawn looks to him confused. Dmitri clarifies that he meant Shawn's skills, since he has been learning directly from Sophia. Shawn asks if Dmitri wanted to fight once again. They both laugh, and Shawn then asks Dmitri if he could stop the car there. He stops in the middle of the road, and Shawn gets out. Dmitri stops him and asks if it was really alright for Shawn to go to school when he was being targeted like this. Shawn says that seeing Dmitri worry about him just gave him goosebumps. Dmitri says that he didn't mean it that way. Dmitri says that Shawn should immediately report back to him if anything was off, and tells him not to be stupid and try to solve everything by himself. He also warns Shawn not to follow any weirdos, and Shawn tells Dmitri to stop embarrassing him. A bunch of the kids notice Shawn and Dmitri talking and think that Dmitri was Shawn's dad, and that Dmitri looked like a model and real young. Shawn wondered if they looked like a family. Dmitri complains that he was just reminding the youngster to stay safe, but he already got irritated before leaving. Meanwhile, in a dusty warehouse, Jang lifts his head into the light while laying on a dirty mattress. Null asks why the place was so dusty. He says that living in such an environment was dangerous to one's health. He then asks how Jang had been doing. Jang runs up to Null saying that he was waiting for Null and that he had so many questions for him. Null apologizes and says that he had many other tasks to do. Null asks if there were new things in the warehouse while looking at a punching bag. Jang says that he was redecorating while grabbing a scissor. Jang says that he forgot to offer a drink for Null. Null says that it was alright, but Jang drives the scissors into the vending machine's coin hole and frantically twists it around. He grabs Null's hand and drags him over to the chairs so that they could drink and talk. He says that these chairs were magical chairs, and that if you sit on them, you can only speak the truth. He asks Null to sit and answer honestly. Null says that Jang had been talking a lot today and asks if he was in a good mood. Jang's expression changes, and he says that he wasn't in a good mood at all. He asks Null to stop changing the point and asks him to answer Jang's questions honestly. He says that Null had promised to find someone for him. He asks if Null was actually looking for him and why it was taking so long to find them. Null assures that he is diligently looking for that person, but he had something else to do before that. He says that Shawn's retrieval was first. He says that Shawn had to be there so Null could keep his promise to Jang. Jang says that Shawn has nothing to do with finding that person. He reminds Null that these chairs are chairs of truth and threatens to kill Null if he was spouting lies. Null says that he wasn't lying and asks him to trust him. But inside he had thought that Jang was just a weirdo with great skills. He thought that he could easily manipulate Jang and use him, but he seems more sensitive than Null had expected. While slightly pulling his sword, he thinks that Jang will attack the second he feels something is wrong. Jang dares Null to pull his sword out if he could. Null slaps him on the shoulder and asks why Jang was saying something scary like that, and promised to look for that person more diligently than before. Before leaving, he asks if Jang wanted to go somewhere fun with him. Jang asks where they were going. Back in school, Shawn enters his classroom. While he walks in, the kids start saying about how the pictures with him were all fake and that Shawn just played along with it to maintain his pride. Shawn sighs while sitting in his chair saying goodbye to his bully life. Marie had threatened the principal to cancel Shawn's suspension. Shawn also had the photo he found in the principal's office. He says that Photoshop has gone too far and that he almost threw up when he saw this picture. Marie says that the picture wasn't photoshopped at all. Shawn couldn't take that image out of his head. Just then his crew comes up asking how he was doing. Shawn asks what they wanted from him now that they knew all pictures of him were photoshopped. The guy leans in and tells him to follow them quietly. The guy says that now it sounds ridiculous that they actually believed Shawn was close with actual gangsters. He asks if Shawn wanted to make fun of them with those pictures. Shawn looks around to make sure that no one was around. While he looked around, the guy tries to punch him. Shawn simply puts up his finger and hits him with it, making him fall to his knees. Shawn says that he really wanted to try attacking without an order, but since it worked, he promised to go easy on the other two. When training, Sophia points out that Shawn's problem was his obsession, an obsession to believe that he was controlled by the principals. Shawn says that even if his brain accepts the fact, his body won't listen. Sophia says that since little Shawn was so stupid, she had no choice but to use another method. He asks what she means. She explains that if Shawn believes that he can only use a part of his power due to the restriction of the three principles, she just needs to increase the total amount of his power. The second bully falls to the floor, and the third one couldn't believe his eyes. He grabs a broom and tells Shawn to come at him. Shawn runs at him, but suddenly stops before the bully swings to kick the broom into pieces, before landing next to the bully and saying that the bell rang and that they had to go in. He gets into the class and thinks that his training with Sophia was actually paying off. Although he couldn't control it, he didn't expect it to be this effective while only using a partial amount of his powers. Jang walks through the hallway and asks if this was class 2-1. He pushes the kids away before he could answer after noticing Shawn. Shawn was lost in thought, wondering how strong he could be if he could use his full strength. Jang says that he hadn't seen Shawn in a while, and when Shawn turns around, he sees a foot right next to his face. Jang kicks Shawn into the next desk, and he barely manages to block himself from falling. Jang says that Shawn's skills seem to have improved. He asks if it was either that or has Shawn graduated from being a good child. Earlier that day, Shawn had decided to act as bait since Null's goal was to acquire Shawn. It would be easier if Shawn just let Null find him. He then asks where Rachel was going with those clothes. Rachel says that she can't just sit back and watch Shawn become bait, and says that she will be around as well. Since Shawn was an important asset of the Dead Mansion, an asset Dead Mansion had to defend with everything they got. Rachel then asks what Shawn's objective was with this operation. Shawn says that it was obviously to get Null. Rachel says that wasn't true. She says that now that Shawn knows he isn't bound by the principles, he has no reason to follow anyone's orders or be controlled by anyone. She asks why he wanted to still fight against Null. She asks if Shawn was still under the illusion that the old woman was his parent. Shawn says that he wasn't sure while grabbing his backpack. Rachel tells him not to brush it off, just like that. Shawn says that he actually doesn't know. He says that he doesn't know why they keep bringing it up, as he doesn't even remember when he was abandoned either. Plus, when he had fought with Null. He says that he could vaguely recall it, but it was too late. He says that all he could think about was how much his head and body hurt that time. Rachel wonders if he was using his powers subconsciously, seeing that he doesn't seem to remember anything. He tells her that he still hasn't fully grasped his powers yet. Rachel says that this is more reason for him not to take such a big risk now. She asks why he wanted to go knowing all this. Shawn says that Rachel was. That him and her weren't even family, and not even friends. He says that if he could choose what to do without the principal's restrictions, he would like to smash those who mess with people he considered his family, even if they didn't think of him as their family. He says that this was his choice, not a command or principle. He says that he was ready to throw himself out as bait for this. He thinks that it was his turn to hunt now. In the hallway, the bullies make their way back to class. The sliding door to their class suddenly falls on top of them. Shawn and Jang fly through the door. Shawn grabs Jang's leg and throws him to the window. Jang grabs the window frame again and pulls himself back in while asking if Shawn hadn't gotten better. A few seconds later, Jang runs into the bathroom. Shawn follows, saying that he fell into Jang's trap. He says that he expected Jang to come after him, but not on the first day. The kids in the hallway start talking about what happened. A teacher asks what happened, and the kids say that Shawn was fighting with someone and that they both ran into the bathroom just now. The teacher says that she will look into it and asks the other students to stay out of it. Jang runs at Shawn, saying that he doesn't seem to have to hold back anymore. Shawn asks if Jang was going easy on him the last time. Shawn grabs him by his collar and slams him to the counter. Shawn says that he wasn't interested in Jang one bit and tells him to say where Null was hiding. Jang kicks Shawn. Shawn snaps back and asks if Jang wanted to keep going. Jang says that Null had ordered him to keep Shawn alive. He dodges Shawn's punch and twists to the side to kick Shawn on the side with both his legs, making Shawn break through the cubicle door into the toilet. Jang says that if Shawn keeps messing around, he would have no choice but to kill him, so he asks Shawn to cooperate and go with him so he can retrieve him. While he walks towards Shawn, something slashes him on the side, and he jumps back. Shawn had gotten his hands on some kind of a scraping tool. Shawn asks if Jang had intentions of killing the others to activate his powers. Jang says that he wasn't sure, but the answer was enough for Shawn to activate his powers. He used the tool like a weapon, thrusting and swinging it around to hit Jang. Jang jumps off a wall and punches Shawn in the face. Shawn tries to hit him back. Just then the teacher bangs on the door and asks if anyone was inside and tells them to open the door. Jang says that it has gotten a little too noisy and asks if they should call it a day. Shawn asks if Jang was planning to run away. Jang ducks below the scraping tool and grabs Shawn and pushes him straight to the window, smashing through. Jang asks if Shawn thinks they were going to get really hurt from this fall. Shawn says that he wasn't planning to find out. He twists around his tool and drives it into the wall to slow the fall. They slide down to the ground and slam through the shed. Shawn quickly stands back up, ready to fight again. Jang says that they can keep it up, but then he notices the tool pierced into his leg. The teacher arrives at the spot. She asks if Jang was alright seeing his wound. Shawn wonders what happened to him suddenly. Jang says that it was new clothes, but it would be fine if he stitched it back. The teacher says that she wasn't talking about the clothes while looking at the wound. Jang wonders if the teacher was worried about him. He says that it was fine, but the teacher just injects him with something. He asks what she just did. She says that it was just something like anesthetic. Jang asks why she would do that before falling unconscious. She catches him as he falls. She tells him to take a good nap since she had a lot of questions she wanted to ask him. Rachel says that with this, she had at least one new test subject. It's the same no matter where you go in the world. Abandoned and neglected children are everywhere. Dead Mansion took such children as material to create the ultimate weapons and sent them for adoption at high prices to parents who needed them. This was the Dead Mansion's Good Children Project. But they weren't the only ones with such ideas. As said before, the materials are abundant wherever you go in the world, to be taken and trained into emotionless monsters. Rachel says that Jang was a product of one of those organizations, something like the Korean version of Dead Mansion. Shawn asks what they were going to do with him. Rachel tells him to leave the rest to her and go back for now, since interrogation was her specialty after all. Shawn asks where he was supposed to go back to. Rachel says she was telling him to go back to his class. She pushes him out, saying that Shawn was the one who wanted to go to school. Shawn says that he understands. Rachel closes the door after Shawn left. Jang dreams back to the time when he was in the training program, getting a haircut. The man warns Jang to stay still so he doesn't get hurt. He says that a hairstyle was everything for a man, and if Jang became ugly for no reason, he wouldn't sell. The man says this while cutting his hair. Jang asks if he can get his hair done just like the man cutting his hair, who he calls Carpenter Uncle. The man says that Jang has a good sense of aesthetics. He says that he will add another line to Jang's certificate to say that he has artistic talents, so that they can get 200 times more the next time Jang is put up for adoption. Then he says that his hairstyle won't suit Jang. Jang asks if he won't fetch a higher price if he looked cool like the carpenter uncle. The man tells him that Jang and him are different, and that everything about Jang must come from him. He says that Jang has to become handsome and strong, and, most importantly, he must be alone. He says that having something like a family only makes a person weak. He asks if Jang understands what he was saying. Jang wakes up from his dream. Rachel says that she was glad Jang was all right. Jang feels a sharp pain and asks if Rachel was the one who patched him up. Rachel says that she just gave some basic first aid. He asks why she was doing this, even though he was her enemy. Rachel says that there was no need to be so harsh, and if he cooperated willingly, they don't have to be enemies. But this was a part of Rachel's experiment. She knows that kids like these don't fold to pain. She knows that for kids who have never experienced being loved by anyone, this was the method that worked best. Rachel leans close and says that she has a few questions for Jang. A man spying on Rachel says that she definitely knows how to flaunt her beauty. He says that Rachel looks stunning even with black hair, and that he can't help but go near her to see her up close. Later outside the gym, while eating a snack, Jang says that he can't tell anything to Rachel. He says that he won't say anything no matter how nice she was to him. Rachel tells him to suit himself, confirming that Jang was indeed with Null. Jang says that he's not taking any side because he has to be alone. Rachel asks if he wasn't fighting Shawn because he was on Null's side. Jang says that he was just temporarily cooperating with Null because of his own goals, since Null had the information he needed to find someone. Rachel laughs and asks how Null would have information on anyone when he was a kid himself. She asks if Jang wasn't being deceived by Null. Jang says that Null's information was real and that he had eyes and ears everywhere. He says that Null even found him when he was escaping from the carpenter uncle. Rachel asks who the carpenter was and why Jang was running away from him. Inside, she was laughing at how easy it was to get information from kids when you slightly challenge their words. Jang says that the carpenter was the one who taught him all sorts of weird things and asks if Rachel knows how hard he had it. He says that he had to train for a few months when he was young, and when he finally ran away, a guy with glasses kept relentlessly chasing him. He says that he ended up on the street because of that, and that was when Null saved him. Rachel gives him a juice box and tells him to take his time while talking. Rachel asks why Null came looking for Jang, thinking that he will keep blabbering everything without even realizing. Jang says that Null had a goal and wanted his help. He says that Null wanted to liberate the good children of Dead Mansion who were sold all around the world. He says that Null wanted a big family with all the good children. Just before he could talk more, the spying man appears behind them, saying if Jang wasn't talking a little too much. Rachel quickly jumps away. The man asks if Jang wasn't careless, falling into a honey trap so easily. He says it was the first time he had the pleasure to meet Senorita Rachel face to face. He says that his name was Miguel. He tells Jang not to be so nervous, and that Null had sent him to bring Jang back. Rachel seems to remember Miguel's name. Miguel says that he is honored that Rachel knows who he was. There was a saying in the Spanish mercenary world: if you see a matador waving his red capote, don't be foolish enough to stomp your feet and charge at him, because the matador is always behind the prey. And this man was known as the Black Matador, Antonio Miguel. Rachel asks why the matador was working with Null. Miguel says that he hates that nickname since he loves animals so much. He says that he had stopped killing bulls since bullfighting was illegal now. He says that he only hunts humans now. He appears behind Rachel in an instant and slashes her back. Miguel says that Senorita Rachel was the first to dodge his attack in decades. He asks what he was supposed to do now that he was getting even more excited. Jang comes in between them and asks if Miguel was supposed to just take Shawn. Miguel asks if Jang really fell for a honey trap like this. Miguel says that Jang doesn't need to worry, as he looked almost as handsome as Miguel, and that there were plenty of even prettier women out there in the world. That was if he managed to survive today. Jang asks why Miguel would do this. Miguel says that Null had a message for him. Miguel says that he was asked to see if he senses even a hint of betrayal from Jang. He had to kill Jang. And also mentioned that Null thought Jang was a total creep. Miguel tells him goodbye after saying as much, but Rachel points her gun at the back of his head. He rolls forward to avoid the bullet and hits the gun in her hand with his weapon. Rachel jumps back. Miguel thrusts his weapon right at Rachel, and it cuts the front of her dress. She now gets the gun which was hidden inside and starts shooting. But after a few bullets the gun jams. Miguel runs at her, saying that it was a pity, seeing that even luck wasn't on her side today. The top of Rachel's head flies off. Miguel says that she was truly the best. Rachel had managed to stop his weapon with her hands. Miguel asks if they should end it now. Meanwhile, Jang remembers when the carpenter had told him that he couldn't really teach him what Jang really needed. Jang asks what it was that he needed. The carpenter says that it was a skill that only the real carpenter could teach him. The carpenter had said that Jang could perhaps meet him someday and learn the skill. Miguel notices something missing in his peripheral vision. He asks where the kid had disappeared. Jang runs towards Miguel unnoticed and barehanded, slicing Miguel's back with his nails. The skill that Jang had was his wild instincts. Inside a very suspicious-looking van, one of the guys says that it was Null's orders to kill the kid named Jang if he interfered with their mission. The next guy says that their target was just a kid and Miguel was more than enough to handle everything on his own. Another one asks if Miguel was just a thug who flirted with women any chance he got, saying he was only famous because he was a matador who tormented poor bulls. A blonde kid asks for the gun one of the thugs was having trouble with. He says the maintenance on the gun was a mess, even though this specific model was known for not breaking down so easily. One of the guys asks which organization the blonde kid came from, since his face didn't look familiar. The blonde kid says it made sense, since he wasn't on their side to begin with. Jang grabs Miguel and pushes him off the spectator area into the court. They both land on their feet. Miguel thinks Jang seems completely different from earlier. Jang whizzes past Miguel, and Miguel notes that Jang's movement was less like a human and more like a beast. Miguel slowly reaches into his coat to pull out a red cloth, saying that he had no chance of losing when he was against a beast. Rachel asks if that was a capote. Miguel says Rachel should sit back quietly and enjoy the show, because this was a fight between the pride of man and the beast. Jang positions himself to thrust forward, and Miguel tells him to go ahead. He waves the capote in front of Jang, and when Jang gets close enough, the cloth fills his vision. Jang tears through it, but Miguel is not behind the cloth anymore. Miguel places a hand on Jang's shoulder while floating above him with a bull-hunting picador in hand. He slams the spear down, but Jang barely avoids it and kicks Miguel clean in the stomach. Miguel says this was exactly how he enjoyed the hunt. Dozens more of those expandable spears are hidden inside his coat. He starts grabbing them one by one and throwing them around Jang, forming a perimeter of spears around them. Rachel wonders what the hell was going on. Miguel says he is no simple bullfighter going in for the kill, but Jang kicks him in the face. Miguel says that because of Jang's passionate attacks, he now also wants to look cooler. Jang gets kicked into a wall of spears, and he feels stuck. Miguel runs at him with a spear, and with nowhere left to run, Miguel assumes it's over. But his spear passes through. Jang uses the spears to lift himself off the ground, swinging from the top and landing a kick under Miguel's jaw. Miguel's head snaps back, and he falls to the floor. He tries to stand up, saying he wasn't done and could still fight. Looking back at Jang, he says he was the matador who tamed countless beasts, the one who always delivered the final blow. But he realizes that the beast he was fighting now was not something humans could tame. He calls Jang a monster. Miguel says he was done acting out of pride. He looks around and throws his spear at the nearest fire extinguisher. Rachel wonders what Miguel was going to do now, but as the fog clears, Miguel has already made a tactical retreat. He runs to the suspicious van and says that if he can't tame the beast, then he just needs to hunt it. He opens the back door and says there's been a change of plans. There was a real monster inside. He tells them to use TNT to blow the whole place away. But only Shawn was sitting in front of him. Shawn grabs Miguel's hair and asks how he dared to order them to blow away the school with TNT, slamming his head against the van. Shawn says he has some questions for Miguel since the others didn't seem to know anything. Shawn drags Miguel inside the van. Meanwhile, back inside, Jang grabs his dirty clothes while Rachel walks up to him. He says Rachel was right about him being deceived by Null. He falls right after saying that, and Rachel catches him. She says his wounds look quite painful and patients are supposed to show appreciation to the person who treated them by trying not to get hurt again. She says she'll patch him up one more time while dragging him back to the infirmary. Jang says it's all right and that he has to be alone. A construction worker arrives outside the building, and the man on the call calls him Eden. He says Eden's next order is to finish them. He aims his nail gun at Rachel's head, pulls the trigger, and Rachel falls. Jang shouts her name, but the wound in his stomach immediately starts to bleed again. The man turns to leave, but Rachel swings her knife at him. She asks if he was trying to pierce someone's head like that out of nowhere. He asks how she was alive and if his nail just grazed her, but then Shawn arrives behind him and slams him to the floor. Eden aims his nail gun at Shawn's head, saying he knows that face, the junior who was called the Legend of Dead Mansion. He shoots and Shawn ducks back. Shawn sees the nails go through safety helmets so easily that he concludes they were some kind of modified weapon. Eden wakes up and kicks Shawn, sending him back. Eden says that his parents knew exactly how to push people's limits and that Shawn was sweating now. Rachel tells Shawn that Eden was a good child. Shawn asks if Eden wasn't a little too old to be called a child. She says Eden was among the prototypes made before Shawn, one of the version 1s. While sipping tea in her full jail outfit, Marie asks if Eugene wasn't going to have some, and asks if he was scared that the tea was poisoned. Eugene says he was just being cautious of a shameless traitor like her, and that he was only accommodating her like this until he got the information he needed about Null. He says that despite her cooperative attitude, he needed to keep his eyes on her. Marie says Eugene really acted like an old man sometimes. She asks if Eugene was aware there were versions of the Good Child program. Eugene asks what she means. Marie explains she was talking about the earlier versions, the generation before Shawn and Null, the version 1 prototypes. Eugene says he had never heard of something like that, even in Dead Mansion. Marie says that was a given, since only a select few knew of their existence. Eugene asks if this information was really important. Marie says she was just trying to prove her cooperative attitude by sharing confidential information. She tells him that the version 1 children were created differently. Eugene asks what that meant. She says they were customizable to the specifications of the parents. Their race, gender, age, and even skills were tailored to the buyer's preferences. She says the training methods used for the version 1s were also the foundation of the version 2s like him and her. Eugene asks if that made them stronger. Marie says the comprehensive training given to the version 2s was far superior, but the version 1s had all their skills intensely focused on a single specialization. Definitely not someone to let one's guard down around, in her opinion. Eden shoots at Shawn as Shawn runs at him, dodging all the nails. Shawn jumps up and kicks Eden down to the ground again. Eden feels his core hurt after just one kick and asks if Shawn was some kind of monster, thinking his speed and destructive power were far above his own. He reaches into a pouch to grab a measuring tape. The next time he gets kicked, he measures Shawn's legs at roughly 841 cm. He says that compared to Shawn's height, his legs were surprisingly long, and that he was jealous. Shawn asks what nonsense Eden was spouting in the middle of the fight. When he gets punched in the face, Eden measures again. Arm length roughly 614 cm, also longer than average. Shawn kicks him back into a tent. Eden says he might really die if he got hit again, but his rough calculations were done. Shawn asks his senior if the new generation was scarier and asks if Eden was down for the count. He jokes about whether he should treat Eden as a senior citizen since he wasn't reacting at all to his attacks. Eden says Shawn had good provocation techniques. Wiping blood off his face, he says he has the rough measurements calculated. Shawn asks what he means while running at him again. Eden uses Shawn's leg length from earlier along with his speed to shoot a nail ahead of time to where Shawn's leg was about to land, nailing it to the floor. Shawn goes through with the punch, but with his arm length also taken into account. Dodging Shawn was now easy for Eden. Shawn starts running away. Eden says it's useless to run away while grabbing his hammer and chisel, saying that chasing down runaways was another one of his specialties. He intercepts Shawn and tries to chisel his head, slamming the hammer on the chisel repeatedly. But he realizes Shawn had been blocking them with leftover pipes. Shawn swings the pipes around, but Eden jumps back, saying Shawn's plans were already exposed. He says he can just calculate and shoot again like before. Shawn switches into Arnie's now that he was armed. He blocks all the nails and appears in front of Eden. Eden barely ducks under. Shawn's swing destroys a wooden box behind him. Eden wonders why Shawn suddenly got stronger and says he should have come more prepared. Just then, his phone rings. He stops Shawn to pick up the call. The man on the phone tells Eden to stop and return. Eden runs off, saying he met his quota for the day. He says he's been ordered to return. Shawn asks if it was an order from Null. Eden asks why he would listen to some annoying white-haired guy. His order came from his father. Shawn tells him to wait and asks if he knew where Null was. Eden jumps over the fence and says he doesn't know and can't tell Shawn. Shawn tries to follow him, but his leg is bleeding badly. He had already used Kali Arnie's twice in a day, and it was taking a toll on him. He thinks his mind might shut down if he continued. Eden sits in his small truck, saying kids these days were something else. He says he never wants to fight Shawn again, and that if it wasn't for Null, he wouldn't have gone through all this. Just then, an iron rod pierces through the roof of the truck. Shawn asks if the senior's ears were going deaf due to old age, since he didn't wait even after his junior asked him to. Eden grabs an angle grinder while calling Shawn persistent. He cuts the iron rod and slams on the accelerator while turning to make Shawn fall off. He curses Dead Mansion, asking what they were thinking creating a monster like Shawn. He says that he was just planning to kill some time and leave. Just then the iron rod pierces through the back of the truck and into his shoulder. Shawn asks what Eden meant by killing some time. He asks if that wasn't interesting news. Someone who shoots nails at people's heads, something like that. Shawn pulls the rod out, and Eden notices him aiming for his head now. Eden dodges it, and Shawn tells Eden to stay still so he can end it faster. Eden grabs his nail gun and nails the accelerator before jumping out and telling Shawn that Shawn won, and that he could keep the truck as his prize. The truck speeds toward a concrete wall and collides into it. Eden waddles away wondering where Shawn even came from. He says that now he has to go to the hospital because of Shawn. Shawn wasn't at the accident site anymore either. Later that evening, when Eden reaches home, he wonders how he was supposed to explain about the truck to his father. When he turns back, Shawn was behind him, barely conscious, but still going. The old man hears a commotion outside, and then he opens the door. He sees Eden on the ground and Shawn on top of him. He thinks that this situation feels like déjà vu. Eden tells his father that it was too dangerous outside and that he should go inside. Shawn lifts the iron rod to attack. The old man tells Shawn to stop, but Shawn whacks himself with the rod over and over. Eden asks what Shawn was doing. Shawn says that he doesn't know. He says that he just remembered something useless. He says that he will only ask one thing before leaving. He asks where Null was. A few minutes later inside, Eden says that he would like to start off with saying that he wasn't going to apologize for what he did. But his father cuts him off and apologizes instead. He says that Null had come looking for them almost a month ago. He says that Null had tried to kill him, saying he was going to take Eden back. Eden fought back, but was no match for Null at all, even when Null was injured. Shawn wonders if it was the injury caused by Sophia a month ago. The old man says that they were only able to survive on the condition of cooperating with Null. He says that Null's target was someone young like Shawn. The old man apologizes for what happened. Shawn says that it was alright since it had already happened and just tells the old man to tell him everything about Null. The old man says that he hadn't seen Null since that day and that he only sent orders through a phone. Shawn says that the phone will be helpful if he could use the call logs or location history to find Null. The old man asks if that was Shawn's specialization. Shawn, confused, says that all good children are taught to do this and asks if Eden couldn't do it. The old man says that he didn't request such features when he had ordered Eden. Shawn thinks for a second and asks if he can ask the old man something else. The old man tells him to go ahead and ask it. Shawn asks why the old man decided to purchase Eden. Eden was waiting outside for them to finish talking. Shawn comes out while stretching and saying that his whole body hurt. Shawn sits next to Eden and Eden asks why he was acting like it was his home and if the woman from earlier was alright. Shawn says that he didn't need to worry about Rachel. Shawn says that he was barely able to stop Rachel from bringing a tank and blowing this whole place up. Eden laughs thinking it was a joke. Shawn assures that he wasn't kidding. Shawn asks what Eden was going to do now. Since he had agreed to cooperate with Null, he had to fight Shawn again. Shawn asks if Eden wouldn't be in danger if they fought again. Eden says that the whole situation was a bit tricky. He says that even though Null was dangerous, he wasn't planning on going against Shawn again. He says that he would rather fight the weaker one. Shawn asks if he was planning to fight Shawn after saying that while looking at him. Eden says that he just needs to protect his father since that was the reason he was created. The old man looks at a picture of a kid that looked just like a smaller version of Eden. Eden says that even his father only purchased him to keep himself safe, and that as long as his father is safe, it doesn't matter which side he fights. Shawn says that he wasn't sure what to say in a situation like this. He advises Eden to talk to his father a bit more. Eden waves it away, asking what he was even supposed to talk about. Shawn says that Eden's father would also not want Eden getting hurt. Eden says that there was no way. He says that to his father he was just an item. Shawn places his hand on Eden's shoulder and says that it didn't sound that way from what he heard from the old man, and tells him to have a proper conversation with his old man. Just then the door behind them explodes and Shawn and Eden are left stunned. 20 years ago, in the same spot, when the old man was not so old, working on a small chair, a kid barges in, asking why his father didn't come. He checks the time, saying how it was so late already. The kid says that his father promised to come pick him up and that everyone's parent except his had come to pick them up. He apologizes to his son and says that he will definitely come pick him up the next day, and also offers to prepare chicken for dinner as sorry. The kid pouts and asks if father was serious. He says that he has to come the next day no matter what, and his father says that he will definitely be there when picking him up. The next day, he kept his promise and went to school to get his kid. The kid was beaming with happiness and came running while waving at his father. He smiles and waves back at the kid. When the kid was crossing the road, he gets hit by a car, right in front of his father. After that, he went to Dead Mansion. The old director listens to his story and asks why he came all the way to Russia even though there were plenty of orphanages in Korea. He says that he had heard rumors about a certain orphanage and that they were capable of creating a child exactly as requested. The director asks if the rumors were true. The old man says that he had been searching Russia for 3 years after he heard about it. He says that only Dead Mansion could create his child. The director places a form on the desk and says that the old man was right. He says that the old man came to the right place. He tells the old man to fill the production form, and the production was going to take 2 to 3 years, and that after production the child will be delivered directly to the old man's house. The old man couldn't believe his eyes when he saw it. He thought that it was a miracle. He had really thought that his child had come back to life. He goes up to the kid saying that he was the kid's dad. The kid just respectfully bows and greets him, completely different from his son. The kid then asks for his orders. The old man realized that this was just delusion, that a dead person couldn't return back to life, that this kid wasn't his child who had died. Few months pass, and the kid returns from school. The old man welcomes him back and tells him to go to his room and rest. The kid says that he understands and tells the old man to call him for help anytime. The old man remembers his son and calls Eden and asks if he wanted to have some chicken today. Eden smiles and says that he would love that. The old man grabs some fried chicken for the night. While eating, Eden says that the chicken was really good, and the old man tells him to have as much as he wanted. While taking a sip of his drink, he sees the photo of his son. He thinks that his son Jean Sol was his one and only child, and that Eden could never replace him. No one could. However, he admits that he had come to love Eden as his own son. Eden notices the old man's expression and says that it was fine, that he knows he was created as a replacement for the old man's son, that he would do anything to satisfy his father. That day the old man had realized how his foolish greed and obsession had been forcing this kid to live a certain way. A deep sense of shame welled up from his stomach. He tells Eden that he didn't need to, and that there was no reason for Eden to do so. He tells Eden that he wasn't his son and that he would never be as well. He just cries silently after that. Eden cleans up everything and puts the drunk man to bed. While walking past his desk, he notices that the kid in the photo had 2 moles on his cheeks. The old man wakes up to Eden's pained scream. He runs out to ask what happened. Eden pulls off a staple from his cheek and says that he figured out the problem. He says that it was because he was missing the moles. He says that with this, he can be a little closer to being perfect. He puts his son's picture back and looks up at the picture he had taken with Eden. While walking through the storage, he notices the chair he was making for his son. While he was looking at it, he hears something outside. A kid in a yukata asks if the old man also wanted to play with the pretty sparkles. She says that he didn't need to worry since there was only about 2 grams of gunpowder in it. The old man asks who she was, but notices a fuse burning behind him. She says that when they are packed together, they go boom while pointing the sparkler at him. The fuse reaches the end and explodes. Eden and Shawn quickly run inside looking for the old man. The old man was on the floor clutching onto the chair. The little girl waves at Eden and Shawn. Eden runs toward his father. Shawn tries to stop him, but it's too late. Eden failed to notice someone hiding in the sidelines. He hits Eden in the face. The weirdo asks Eden if he thought he was going to run toward the little girl. He asks if he didn't ask Sparky to hide. Shawn jumps at the weirdo from behind. He just redirects the kick, saying that he knows Shawn's face. Eden aims his nail gun at the weirdo's head. The weirdo dodges. Eden says that he was going to make things clear for Shawn. He says that Shawn was an assistant in this fight.